Hi YouTube family, how are you? Lisa A. Romano here, the life coach, and today I want to talk about some of the things that happen in ACOA families that people really don't tend to discuss. And I really don't know why, because it's such a common thing that happens in ACOA type families. And I just want to reiterate that when I say ACOA family, I am speaking to those of us who grew up in dry homes. What I mean by that is the ACOA syndrome, in my opinion, is not exclusive to children who actually had active alcoholics as moms and dads. So if you are the grandchild of an alcoholic, or if you are the great-grandchild of an alcoholic and nobody in your lineage or no one in your family history has ever gotten any help for ACOA type stuff, chances are that you were raised by sober alcoholics who live in denial, who are detached from self, who are self-alienated, who are aloof, passive-aggressive, minimize you, and aren't connected. And if that's your case, welcome home. So today I want to talk about what happens in ACOA homes where there are siblings and none of them share the same reality. It is so common. Most of the times, the oldest child who did not have siblings around to bounce off of is usually the one who remembers the most, who is the most wounded, and who has the least amount of tolerance for mom and dad's stuff. Now, also, what I find in my coaching practice is those of us, and I'm the oldest child as well, my ACOA clients from dry homes as well as active alcoholic homes, who are the oldest children, tend to have suffered a more honest reality than the siblings. Another common trait amongst the oldest children, the oldest ACOA children in a family, is that they tended to need to protect the younger siblings from whatever was going on at home with mom and dad. Now, a really interesting thing happens when we get older. Our younger siblings don't remember what we remember. And they have no understanding that we protected their ass and we protected them psychologically and emotionally from what was going on with mom and dad. They have no recollection of that. So this is what happens. They have this sugar plum fairy idea of their childhood that is not in touch with reality, or at least your reality. Now, that makes you feel more isolated and more lonely because they're not validating the fact that you are protecting them. And that's what happens when we protect people. We get kicked in the ass. I'm just saying it like it is, dear ones, because here we are, being their champion when we're young and they're young and we're trying to protect them, and it works. Hear what I'm saying? We did such a good job protecting them that they don't remember the trauma. Now, it takes some mental hurdling to say, well, I did my job, and that's what I wanted. I wanted them to feel protected. Because if your siblings don't remember your reality like you do, that means you did a really good job protecting them. So good for you, dear one. But that's little consolation when you're at family dinners and like you say something and your brother's like, that's not what happened. You're just too sensitive. That never happened. Why are you talking like crap about mom and dad now? That's not what happened. Like, why are you getting all up in their face? Like, why are you making stuff up? Literally that's what happens in ACOA homes. The siblings don't have the same reality. In some cases, in very dysfunctional homes, and everything's a spectrum. I don't think anybody comes from a perfect home. I think it's degrees of dysfunction, in my opinion. Like codependency has degrees. But I have also discovered in my practice in my own home that sometimes parents pit the children against one another. Oh my God. So if you're the scapegoat, like maybe mom enjoys aligning herself with the middle child against the older child. I can relate to that. Maybe, mom enjoys aligning herself with the youngest child to go after the oldest child or the middle child. And when that happens, mom has an ally, because this is a dysfunctional dynamic. Like, mom doesn't get it, like that's effed up. And mom doesn't get that she was supposed to validate all the children, and she was supposed to be the captain of the ship, and the rules were supposed to be fair, and she was not supposed to play favorites, and she wasn't supposed to humiliate us in front of our friends and our families, and she wasn't supposed to encourage one sibling to pick on the other sibling. Like, that's dysfunctional. Okay, so any moms out there watching this video, if you're doing that, knock it off, because you're creating chaos in your children's lives. And when you're gone, your children are only going to have each other to hold on to. So try to work on that. Now, to all the children, adult children out there who have been suffering this abuse, dear ones, if that's what you feel, then that's valid. Do not look for sibling A and sibling B to validate you, because they're not going to. They're not going to. And so, again, part of what we do here on this channel is we teach you, or I teach you, to become aware that you're seeking validation outside of self. And in seeking validation outside of self, you're coming up empty-handed and you're getting frustrated. And unfortunately, codependents attract narcissistic people. So guess what? You attract a narcissistic partner. You say, I'm upset, and they go, oh yeah? Well, you didn't have the kind of childhood I had. At least you had this. And what they're doing is minimizing you again. So here you are as a child, and you got minimized, and now you attracted a partner who's minimizing you. And now when you get angry at your partner, they get angry at you because you're angry at them. And now they're better at guilting you than you are at understanding you have a right to feel what you feel. And so guess what? They make you feel guilty. And all your childhood wounds surface. Mom didn't validate me, now my wife doesn't validate me, or dad didn't validate me, now my husband doesn't validate me, now my children don't validate me. And really what happens is our adult relationships are mirrors to how we felt, mom and dad felt about us when we were little. So this video is about helping you understand that if your siblings share a different reality than you, that's okay. It has to be okay. Now, dear ones, what I want you to do is learn to begin putting things in your life into two categories, okay? So get out a piece of paper, and I want you to write on one side of the piece of paper, things I can control. Things I absolutely can control. On the other side of the paper, you're going to write things I cannot control. Things I cannot control. Okay, what can I control? I can control that I can accept my reality. Like, my mother was different to me than she was my sister. That's my right. That's how I experience it. And that's okay. Now, on the other side, I cannot control how my sister perceives my relationship with my mother. I can't control that. I cannot control that my sister had a different experience in her childhood with our mother. Okay. What can I control? I can control that I can accept that I protected my sister from a lot of my mother's stuff. And I can't control that she has no memory of that. I can't control that my sister doesn't appreciate the sacrifices I made as an older sibling. I can't control that. I got to let that go. And so I hope this has inspired you siblings out there who are understanding that, you know, if there are 3, 4, or 5 of you in a family, you literally all have a different perception of your childhood. That has to be okay. The only thing that you can control is how you react to how they feel. Now, you can't control how they feel, and you have no right to control how they feel, because they're individuals, and they have their own life experience, and they don't have to agree with you. They don't have to agree with you. And you, as long as you don't seek their validation and you know that you have a right to feel what you feel, then you can accept that they're not going to validate you. It doesn't mean anything. It's irrelevant if they validate you or not. It's irrelevant. You have to honor your experience. You have to validate your experience and hold on to that in your heart. Just hold on to that in your heart. No, this is my experience, and I own it, and I have a right to it, even if my siblings refuse to validate it. We have to understand that everybody comes into this world with a different lens. And we're only in control of our lens and what we see. And when we begin to accept that other people, including our siblings, have a right to perceive their childhood and even our childhood, they have a right to perceive our childhood the way they want to. And we have a right to hold on to our perception of our childhood. And we don't ever have to give that up for anybody. We don't ever have to give up what we think happened to us as children. Eventually we get to a point where we accept it, we integrate it, and once we allow ourselves to feel the feelings that mom and dad and siblings told us we had no right to feel, once we get in touch with those feelings, then we're able to let them go. I often say that, like, if you needed $1,000 and you said, hey, Lisa Romano, life coach, give me $1,000. If I didn't have $1,000, I couldn't give it to you. So it's much like the forgiveness is the same thing. If you don't have forgiveness of self, if you don't forgive self for not taking care of self, or if you don't forgive self for not knowing stuff, like, you can't offer a mom and dad forgiveness or your siblings forgiveness. So everything's always going to come back to the self. Can I validate me? Can I validate myself? Can I love myself? Can I give myself permission to feel the feelings that these people are telling me I don't have a right to feel? When you turn away from that, when you are around someone who invalidates you, your goal is to say, they're invalidating me, and I don't want to hang out with them anymore. They don't see me. That's the clue to walk away. We're not supposed to boo-hoo, cry our eyes out, pout, stamp our feet, start to withhold, get angry, and manipulate them into validating us, or trying to make them feel guilty, or punish them because they can't validate us. That's not our goal. If you're around people who invalidate you, dear one, that's your cue to vamos. That's your cue to, like, start, bye-bye. You don't want friends who minimize you. You don't want friends